Hello everybody and welcome to our webinar on AI intake management and autonomous negotiations. AI and procurement has been the hot topic in 2025 and we still see there's a lot of interest in people understanding what is it, how does it work, how do I get ready for it, and what can I even do with that. And that's exactly why we decided to host this webinar today and bring to life two of the most prominent use cases that a lot of folks are actually interested in: intake management and autonomous negotiations. So over the next 30 minutes, we will not give you a demo, but we really want to talk about how do you set yourself up for success? What do you need to bring? What do you need to have in place? What kind of people, resources, budgets do you need in order to really get started with this? If you're interested in a demo of this, next week there's a webinar on just doing exactly that. So I will send out the link afterwards as well. But today it's really about bringing to life the prerequisites. I have with me two gentlemen, Sam and Jonjo, and I will ask you to introduce yourself in just a second. My name is Fabian. I sometimes forget that in the introductions because I'm nervous. I'm the founder of Advanced Procurement, and that's an agency specialized on digital or procurement digitalization. So Sam, if you would, or Jonjo, actually, you're the guest, so if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, and while you do that, I will start a quick poll just to get everybody engaged and also tell us a little bit about where they are on their own AI journey already.
Certainly, thanks, Fabian. So, morning, everybody. So, who am I? My name's Jonjo. I have a lifetime in procurement and procurement consulting. I run Capita's procurement consulting business. We have 35 clients in a typical year across a range of sectors, public and private. There are all of our clients, as far as AI is concerned, are at different stages of their journey. And I think that's a really interesting thing to look at, is the different sectors and where people are going. But for us as well, we're also on an AI journey. And I think, like just about everybody, we've had our successes and we've had our challenges and our failures. For example, if from a success point of view, very targeted solutions. So we've helped a client develop a pretty complex contract auditing process. It's barely out of pilot and it's yielded, over £1 million worth of value. And on the other side, we've had big failures, assumptions around, AI's ability to manage unstructured data. Trying to set up too big a program because AI can do everything. So you dive into it and then you realize you've got a hell of a lot more prep work to do than you thought you had. And obviously things like developing people. So I'm pretty sure that my experiences are going to be common with yours. But that's who I am, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, you already used so many ideas now just in the introduction. I'm not sure that 30 minutes is enough to unpack all of that, but great to have you. Sam.
Perfect. And thank you, Jonjo. It gives us lots to talk about today. But for me, my name's Sam. I head up the go-to-market for the UK and North America for Procure AI. And we are a AI procurement automation platform, helping our customers build a connected and secure procurement platform.
Cool. Perfect. Well, then I guess we have we have the right people now in this discussion. Let's make sure that everybody around the table, let's say, has also the same understanding of the topic. And so just very, very briefly, what is AI in procurement?
Perfect. I can jump in on there. So for me, I think AI is obviously a massive topic at the moment. If we think of AI as the overall brain, and then we break that down into AI agents and sort of a thought process to that, using an agent as the employee that uses the brain to do the work. Now, there are different types of agents that can complete different tasks, often across different systems, different workflows. And an example of that, for example, in procurement would be a procurement automation agent that then helps process purchase requests. Why that's so right for procurement is that it's still highly manual, highly fragmented, slow, and has lots of major hidden efficiencies. And then AI can instantly analyze, process, map, and categorize the information in which procurement needs to make a decision or to drive a process forwards.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I have learned over the last 12 months and that I find extremely important about this topic is that AI is not AI, and Gen AI is not AI. There's different foundational models of artificial intelligence that can be used. And right now, or over the last 12 months, people have always kind of gotten into this groove of, hey, ChatGPT is the answer to everything, and this large language models is all that I really need in order to make this happen. And I think that's one of the biggest myths that I have encountered, and where I have really learned, okay, you need to be really clear on what AI model do I need in order to solve a particular problem. And so this is, again, when we come to the use cases later, something to reflect on a bit more as well, of how they use different approaches in order to get to results. Talking about results, Jonjo, what are the results that the procurement teams are looking for? What are your clients interested in?
Yeah, look, so I'd probably say top level, if I looked across all of them, I guess it's procurement productivity. I mean, the do more for less challenge that obviously, with everything that's going on in the world, seems to be a pretty common theme. And AI really is a golden opportunity to do that. Okay, so if you go down within that, you've probably got, processing efficiency, team efficiency, cost savings, and then I guess, you're heading towards competitive advantage for the wider businesses. And I think, if I take cost savings, for example, it's a huge opportunity in pretty much every category, right? And it's not just you generating savings and efficiencies on your side in your operations. All of your suppliers are using AI. They're trying to improve their operations and maintain or improve their margins. So making sure that you as the client are benefiting from what your suppliers are doing as well is a key part of this. So yeah, I would say procurement productivity, the ability to do more for less, drive savings. I think that's what people are really targeting at the moment.
I really love how you immediately were totally in this procurement mindset of like, oh, he's getting better. That means he's more efficient. That means he has higher margins. How can I have a piece of the cake? So really, really like that attitude.
It's the collaborative relationship, of course, right? Okay, as we're working all these things out, you need to do all these things together. So absolutely, and of course, I do have that little procurement nugget going.
Makes perfect sense. And I just closed a poll just to get a feeling for where everybody is standing. And we have roughly a third of people that are saying they haven't really started their journey yet. And then there's like across all of the other different use cases that I put out there is really a mixed bag. And the one thing I do want to say, there is nothing where we really get above 20%, beside people not doing anything at all. But all of the other use cases have kind of a slight or kind of similar distribution. Let's say 4 people, 5 people, 7 people saying here and there they are using it. So therefore we definitely see we're at the very beginning of this journey because otherwise these numbers would be a lot higher already. Cool. So now intake management and autonomous negotiation. That's the topic of today. Sam, you're the guy who is selling this kind of stuff. Can you tell us just very briefly what those two use cases are and why people are so excited about them?
So very briefly, I'll try and do it as quick as I possibly can. Three sentences. Intake management, single front door. So the starting point for all business requests. And I think for that, what you're trying to achieve, eliminating manual triage, increasing process compliance, as you can do all of those checks in that front door. And then ultimately, and I'm going to add the fourth, apologies for more than 3, is to speed up cycle times, right? It's free procurement to really focus on that strategic work.
I think it's really this what people used to call guided buying and felt a little bit tricked with. That's actually what it's supposed to do, right? Somebody comes in, somebody is standing by the door, hey, where do you want to go? And actually brings them to where they need to. And that helps us with getting people to the right contracts, to the right suppliers, to the right buying channels. And potentially also alongside all of the nice side processes like the IT security assessments and all of that good stuff. So that's intake management for everybody. Now we're on the same page. Autonomous negotiations. And by the way, just one quick comment to everybody. Usually we talk about autonomous sourcing and negotiations. We wanted to keep it a bit more focused today because sourcing just a rabbit hole. And so let's stick with the negotiation part today.
So you can suggest the negotiation part is where you'd use AI to analyze pricing and even negotiate directly with vendors, right? In its crux, that's what it does. What it aims to achieve is drive cost savings, make that consistent through all of the competitive events that it then runs for you, and then ultimately increase sourcing throughput. So how much you actually then can put through procurement itself, and the amount of events that you're physically able to negotiate as a department and as a procurement function. And with a lot of what AI is ultimately trying to achieve is removing those manual, repetitive tasks. So remove the negotiation work, and again, reduce the cycle times, enabling procurement to free up time to focus on more strategic work.
Oh my goodness, I hate that term, to be honest. Really sorry to say that, but I believe today, where we stand with autonomous negotiations, we're not really there where we're freeing up time to reinvest, because usually people apply it in areas where, well, nobody has been doing it in the past. So therefore, if nobody has done it, we're not really freeing anything up. But I think this is exactly the objective, to get to a place where we can support people that are actually investing time in negotiation prep and doing more strategic ones in the future. So that's the future. Today, I think we're a little bit more in this tailspend area of like the stuff that we don't have time to deal with or just don't want to deal with.
Agreed. And I think as the AI journey does progress, that is our overall goal, right? That is what we are trying to achieve. Now, initially, that's a little bit further down the line, but it's still the overall goal. It's still the nirvana of where we're trying to get to as procurement people, right? So it's still in my mind. That's where I want to get everybody to.
It is where we need to go. But Jonjo, you made a comment earlier, like small pieces, good starting points where you can actually get value fast and don't have to overcomplicate it. I think this is exactly one of those, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. But I do want to pick up on what you said. Sort of autonomous negotiation has not been done before. So is it really saving you anything? Well, I think that's a process improvement. That's an added value. And I think people have got this concept that AI is all cost out. It's got lots of different facets. It can be efficiency. It can be cost out. It can be competitive advantage. It can be doing more than you were doing before. So a better product. So I think that's a massive added value. So I think we just need to bear that in mind, not just and I think too much of the mindset is it's all about cost. It's cost out. And be careful, because the outcomes that have got value for you as a business can come out of doing things you didn't have the capacity for before. So anyway, I just wanted to add that bit in. I think, you asked me about targeted specific things. I think, if we want to talk about, success, actually realizing the value that AI offers, one of the things that we've seen that has challenged people is this belief that it's quite easy to do because AI is really intelligent. And B, it can do everything all at once and don't worry about it. So I think what I talk about first is you've got to train and develop people. These are core skills. It is new. People naturally fear new things. And when you've read all the articles in the papers that says you're all going to lose your jobs, right? That's not helpful, right? So people fear that. So invest in educating people, because once they are educated, we're seeing it. You're seeing benefits of different mindsets, faster adoption of processes after people have been through apprenticeships and training. That's been a massive help. But I think as far as projects are concerned, I'd call it a manageable project. Don't set your dreams too big for your first test of AI. Choose a problem, choose a process, invest the right team into it, give it a proper chance, allocate people time to focus on it, and then make that a success. And then you can build from there, because the first experience being a failure can be quite dispiriting. And being honest with you, there is a lot that you have to experience with an AI that is a failure. It's not going to do what you think it is. So, yeah, for us, what we've seen with clients that have done well, or even for ourselves, where we've done something, isolate a problem, invest in it, really focus on it. And then, honestly, the take-up then becomes faster and faster. People go, oh, I love that. That was brilliant. So, yeah, to answer that question, there are some other bits I can talk about that sort of make success, but that's certainly worked for us.
I think this part of focus on one problem, that's actually a really good one, because Sam, I think from the discussions we had beforehand, you still encounter a lot of people just saying, hey, I want to do something with AI, not really thinking about the problem. How do you, how does that conversation usually go then?
Yeah, I think there is a big fear of missing out, and people are just going, AI is, I have to do something. I don't know what it is, and where do I start? And for us, it really is having the conversation of understanding what is the problem, right? How do we fundamentally break that down into manageable chunks, or even parts of, and changing that into solution type, parts of a solution like individual just intake or just autonomous negotiations, to understand from an organization what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. We then can piece together parts of a platform to create a use case. And for example, today's two pieces that we're talking about, and how we then get them started on that journey. It's not just go from here to loads of free time for strategic procurement, right? There are steps in between all of that to get them to that point. And there's a really big education piece on how we understand the ways of working inside an organization and how we align to those values and strategic goals to really deliver and change what the fundamental problem is. And that does come back to Jonjo and I being here today, that collaboration of consultancy and how we work together to really sort of understand what that challenge is and how we can then help.
I want to get back to that towards the end of the session, but you just made a very interesting point here again, and Jonjo, you alluded to it earlier as well. Which parts of the process we can actually support? And I think this is exactly where Jonjo, you said, don't try to think too grand. Don't try to think end to end from day one, but pick that one part that you can automate and then, or improve, then take the next one, bolt it on, and so on and so forth until you get to a broader kind of set of, or to a more holistic set of that process. But don't start with the idea everything along that process from day one perfect, because I think that's another really good reason why people then get frustrated and projects fail. Again, we're here today to talk about intake and autonomous negotiations because people are interested in those. So now, Sam, when people get started or want to get started with those, like now let's assume we have finalized that problem, we have agreed that this is something of interest. What do people need to have actually in place in order to get started with those? Let's start with intake.
Okay, so I think for intake specifically, and there are a few similarities between the two, but for intake specifically, so clear workflows, policies, and that front door, right, is what intake is ultimately going to give you, is understanding what those policies are, what those workflows are, and having them mapped to be able to utilize the solution itself. I think having also an alignment on what is going to be automated against what actually needs to be reviewed by procurement. And there can be a combination of the two there as well, right? The human and the AI working in unison. And then as much as clean data is clean data, and whether everybody actually has perfect data or not is a whole nother conversation. But having that basic integrations into the relevant systems, whether that be the ERP, whether that be a P2P solution, whether that be contract data or supplier lists, to be able to extract the information to create the workflows in which intake will be needed.
And it actually makes sense, because if I want to guide somebody alongside my contracts or my available contracts or my available suppliers, well, then I need to feed those information in, right? And so therefore, again, I guess it really comes down, where do you want to start? And do you want perfect contracts, perfect catalogs, perfect everything from day one? Or I think some people even start with just one of those and say, hey, I use this in order to help people navigate my contract landscape or my buying channel landscape, things like that. So I think that's really more than, again, it can be small, it can be very large, but this is exactly, again, where the initial conversations become so important.
Agreed. I think sorry, Jonjo, I also think that there is valuable data, whether you think it's perfect or not, right? And having access to it and being able to make a decision from that access is still valuable. Now, that can be cleaned over time. And again, it's that journey. But there is still valuable information in all of it, whether you think it's perfect or not. So that starting point is still key.
All I would add to that is, I think too many people within procurement have historically obsessed around sort of data perfection or chasing data perfection. And I think you end up with data paralysis. You just stop being able to move forward because you don't think it's got enough to do something. And I think whilst I do absolutely recognize the need for good source data, input data to these processes, you've got to get going at some point, right? So don't get paralyzed in your progression or your evolution by seeking a data set that you're not going to get to.
And also, one thing that I always find quite interesting here: ask yourself, are your people perfect? Because if you expect the AI to be perfect, just ask yourself, is everything perfect today? Maybe then you wouldn't really need this at all either. So being fine with the 80% is maybe a good starting point and something to then aspire to go towards the 100. But setting the 100 as the objective from day one is probably the reason why then a lot of things don't actually move forward. Cool. So that's for intake management. It sounds really simple. Just some policies, the main ERP or P2P system, plus then additional information as you wish, basically. What about autonomous negotiations? What do you need there?
Again, so similar connectivity point goes across all of this, right? I think that the clear communication channels is fundamental to whatever you're going to do from any part of the process. I think to go specifically for negotiations, one of the big things is the guardrails for the AI autonomy. So the thresholds, the preferred suppliers that you're going to then point the system towards. What approval levels do you have in the system for it to be able to act on for you, and for it to find a simplest route to an outcome, whatever outcome you predefine it to be. And then structured supplier catalog data, again, around all of the connectivity, giving it defined sourcing rules. What are you going to allow it to go and negotiate for you? Is that a percentage? Is it a more, depending on the threshold, is it going to be more aggressive? Is it going to be more simply to find an outcome? And then you're able to define in which way it can move forwards.
I think that's, I'm a little bit nerdy about that kind of stuff, but if you think about it, like, this is really the part where you can either say, for my organization, I define one set of rules that it's aiming for a minimum of X and a maximum of Y before it says, yes, okay, let's get an agreement. But because there's a lot of people that are actually more thinking about different categories, you can completely nerd out and say, hey, for this particular category, I want it to look like this. And if you have 500 categories, well then, in theory, you could have 500 different sets of rules. At that point, I would probably say, let's see where the commonalities are and really just focus on the outliers. But just to really make it clear to everybody, it's not a one-size-fits-all. I've seen a lot of people start with a one-size-fits-all approach just in order to get going, and then over time to really become more granular as people become more comfortable with it and start to, based on their category strategies, also define different engagement rules. So I think that's really, really the part that always fascinates me, and that a lot of people don't actually know, that you can go to this kind of level of granularity. Okay, so now we talked about the technical part mostly and what kind of content is needed. I guess as in other digital engagements, Jonjo, there's other parts that are more true for all of this, of what people need to have. Can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I think, I've touched on some of them already. I think training of your team, making sure they've got the room to, at proper time, set aside to develop themselves. That's a key part of this. I put a sort of big grab all around project management, so within that, though, I'm going to say a clear roadmap, clear objectives, roles and responsibilities, so that people understand clearly what their contribution to mobilization and the project is. I think those are very, very important. And I've touched on manageable projects, and we've just talked about data. So I think those were my primary comments that I was going to bring into this, I think. So, yeah, but don't underestimate the need to, allow people to grow with this and learn about this, because it is new. Yeah. And it's not as straightforward as people would love you to believe it is.
Well, and I was in one proposal not too long ago where we were talking about setting the more governance structure in which these, especially the intake part, has to operate. And it's this clear movement of procurement, like, Yeah, maybe we do that later. Let's do it in a very, very light way and not wanting to do it properly. I think this is exactly why we're here again with tech provider and consultancy, because there is a reason for that. Just before we get into that final question, one thing that I've written down here was about the efforts. So we talked about the technical part and also what more project management is needed. But from a lot of people also ask about internal requirements, IT resources, things like that. Budgets is a big topic. Like, can you share a little bit of your experience on that? What is needed actually in order to get this going, just so that people get a bit of a frame?
I think you mentioned quite a few of them there. To be honest, I think the technology investment goes without saying. It's the platform subscriptions, it's the integration costs, and any additional add-ons that then come after that. But the internal resources is something that we always try and get hold of very early in any process that we're talking to, is understanding that the time it takes for process alignment to make the solution work, the change management from an organization perspective to implement a solution, training for staff, etc. And then actually the initial data preparation, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about connectivity, we talked about the systems that you're going to use. And is that data actually physically ready to be able to be processed, to then even consider automation beyond that? And then one you touched on, Fabian, the sort of ongoing operational side of the solution, right? It's the effort to monitor what you're getting from it, the performance that's being delivered, and especially with how fast AI is developing, and also how fast an organization's procedures and ways of working will change with AI, to continue to refine and redefine those models as it does grow and as it does change, and ensuring that you have the right partnership with not only the tech provider but the consultancy you're using to continually evolve that to maximize the value you can then get from it.
Yeah, and I think just one addition on the IT resource part, it's as always, if IT is brought in at the very end of the process, then it takes a little bit longer. If they are part of the journey early on, then the actual workload, I think I looked at one implementation plan, it was saying like 10 man days of IT resources across the project. But again, the project can very easily fizzy out if people get brought on too late. So final 2 minutes, final question. And Jonjo, I think this is now going to you. Again, we said it before, there's a reason why we have a solution provider as well as a consultancy here in this webinar today. Why is that a winning concept also for this kind of part of the transformation and not just the overall transformation, let's say?
So I think from our perspective, we have a multitude of experiences. So, if you think there's 35 clients across multiple sectors, the team have developed a broad reference point of things that work and things that don't. I mean, that is one of the cliched and long-standing reasons why people engage with consulting firms. And it's no different as far as AI is concerned. I think the other role, which is important at the moment, is the bridge, I guess. I'm not talking about being a blocker. I'm talking about a bridge, a connector between supplier and client, because there are so many companies on the AI journey, so many small, large. Every man and its dog is having a go at the agent build program. So bridging that gap, sort of filtering a little bit to make sure that there is clarity on which provider you're working with, because really for a lot of companies, you're not buying a supplier, you're buying a partner. The journey for this is one that you're building and designing together. So you've got to get that right. And I think, as a consulting firm, we often find ourselves supporting those choices and holding both sides to account. Okay. Consulting is about a structured methodology, right? A lot of the time. And I think with these new projects, having that is, it takes companies from doing some AI, which is like that generic thing that everyone thinks they're doing, to actually focusing on how you're going to realize the value of AI, and not just Copilot is not the end of the journey. That's barely the beginning. It is how are you going to get measurable impact that you can show is coming from your AI initiatives. And I think it does work. Look, if you've got an in-house capability that does diagnostics, opportunity assessments, business case, process evaluation, happy days, congratulations, lucky you. Most people don't. And if you don't, then you need to have those roles fulfilled somewhere in the process. And I think that's why helping clients understand what the journey is to get to achieving value is a good place for consultancies like us to support them.
And I think two things that really stand out for me. You have the solution providers as well, but especially consultancies have like this breadth of perspectives of what people are doing because they are doing it with them. And you as a client might have the wisdom of one, and that is your own world. And so therefore bringing in this external perspective is super, super relevant. The second point, and I think that to me is the strongest one, is the accountability. It's like if there's three in the room, like everybody is holding everybody accountable. And I think that is something that is absolutely powerful to really say, hey, we all need to get this. And if one person is slacking, then two people to trying to lift them up or to kick them in the bum is extremely powerful and more helpful than just one doing it. So we're already done. Thank you very much for your time, for your inputs. 30 minutes fully packed. Like this time is flying, and like I'm sweating. So thank you very much for sticking with us. I will share the recording with everybody afterwards. I will also send the link to the demo where you can actually see this in action. And one of the things that we didn't talk about is the Procurement Academy that we have developed over the summer with Procure AI, where people that want to learn more about AI and procurement can join a free certification course in order to get the basics, the maturity that is needed in order to get started going as well. So with that, Jonjo, Sam, thanks so much, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.